You're listening to Mind, Body, Home with your host, Sara Ann. Summertime is officially here, you guys, and I don't know about you, but I am excited to tap into summertime. Last year, we spent pretty much our entire summer packing and preparing our home for sale, possibly rent. We were considering being landlords because we were in an uncertain um, housing market. We didn't know where Austin was really going to go for us as far as selling it. So, all of that was happening while my husband was traveling back and forth from Texas to Florida. So last summer was just me and the kids. It was more about hard work and, sort of infused with a little bit of uncertainty, right? And we also had some unwanted rodent visitors. We had car troubles, all of those, a story for another day. My point is, this summer, I really want to tap into the essence of summer, right? Slow days, soaking up the sun, being outside, exploring our new area here in Florida. We've been here 9 months, but there's still so much we want to do and see, of course. And just overall, like revitalizing my personal energy and the energy of Jade Scott Design. To be honest, there's a little bit of a brand refresh happening behind the scenes that will certainly also impact the podcast going forward too. And I'll sort of segue into that before we dive into today's topic. So today will be my last solo episode until September. I don't have a date nailed down yet, but do not worry. I have some amazing guest interviews lined up for you this summer. So, starting next week, I have the summer guest series starting back up. It is something that I started last year. What I did was I batched a bunch of recorded conversations and interviews. I don't love calling them interviews, to be honest. I like to think of them as more of like a cozy coffee chat, right? But I do that. I batch them so that I'm not bogged down with podcast recording and editing. Um, I do all of my podcast producing myself. And so it's a lot, right? And in the summer, the kids are home. So I want to take as much off my plate as I can. And so the guest series, it really helps me do that. It helps me create more space. It allows me to be more present with the kids. I still have work to do, right? That never goes away as an entrepreneur, but it does create some space in my business. Our first guest is Dr. Monique. She's an acupuncturist trained in 5-element acupuncture, which is a little bit different from traditional Chinese medicine. And we actually talk a little bit about that. We had a really great conversation on what acupuncture is, if it's something you're considering or something you've been curious about, how to tap into your element and realize maybe what's your dominant, what you're missing, where do you struggle? It could be all in the elements. And she also offers some really wonderful tips on aging well from the inside out. So check back next week. The summer guest series is kicking off. So make sure you're following Mind, Body, Home podcast on your favorite streaming platform or subscribing to us if you follow along on YouTube. So let's get into this week's topic. In my last episode, I shared some tips on how you can slow down for the summer. For a lot of you, that might be something new to you, right? Slowing down is a challenge when we've been hyped up on the constant of doing. Because summer is connected to the fire element, it's all about connecting back to your passions, right? Your purpose, the things that bring you joy and creative inspiration, right? The things that light you up. This can be in our work, in our play, or it can be in both, right? For me, it's both. Being an entrepreneur, there's always work to do. But if you love what you do, then it doesn't feel like work, right? It is cliche, I know, but it really is true. If your business or your craft is aligned with your purpose, your values, your mission, things you care deeply about, then all those day-to-day operations in your business do not feel like work. They feel equally important. And, you are happy to work on them. But if you're feeling overwhelmed by them, you notice little frustrations creep into your day to day, perhaps with your clients or with vendors, right? Or even the social media algorithm, then you might want to check in with your purpose and your mission and your values again. And this really goes for any job or career, not just for business owners. If you're working in a role for a company that you've sort of lost your spark, maybe it's time to check in with yourself, with what it is you want from a career or from a job. Asking simple questions like, what is it that I like or dislike about my role, my job, my company, my boss? What are the things that bring me joy, right? And am I incorporating them into my daily life? What did I love doing as a kid? What am I really good at, right? Am I being given opportunities to showcase my talents, right? These are all questions to help you tap into that fiery passion and joy, that zest for life. And doing this during the summertime is really the perfect time to reevaluate these things. And so that's what today's episode is going to help you do. And, again, this is not just about work, this also is for play. Maybe things are going great in your business or at your job. Great. That's fantastic. Let's keep it that way so that we don't burn out, right? Let's make space for creativity and play. We're going to focus on the office space today, but it could be the office space in your home. It could be your office where you physically work, like if you have to leave your home. Your office space is where you allow yourself to express your creativity and your talents. And most likely, if it's all aligned, that's what enables you to make your living and hopefully a prosperous one, right? And when I speak of creativity, that doesn't necessarily mean painting or writing or musical talents, right? Anything that's typically categorized as the arts, although it certainly can be. Creativity is something we are capable of. And in fact, we do regardless if we're aware of it or not. We're creating all the time. Being creative, by my definition, is being clear on a goal, on a purpose, a desire, and then the doing, the action, taking action on it intentionally, aligning yourself with that goal or purpose every day, right? Or as often as possible. Creativity is the essence of manifestation. So, what is it that you want to manifest? What do you want to invite into your life? What do you desire more of? So let's look at the office space again at home or at work, and let's apply some feng shui enhancements to help us connect back to those joys and passions and manifest those new desires that we have. So, the office, I think of, next to the kitchen and your bedroom, your office or workspace could be a dedicated room as the office. This could be a corner nook where you have your computer desk. For some people, the office space sort of shares a room, which in traditional feng shui, that's sort of not suggested. But for some people, it's reality. So wherever that space is, wherever you sit down at your laptop, it might even be a chair in your living room. It might be a chair at your dining room table. You can apply some of these enhancements and adjustments where needed. So, again, aside from the kitchen and the bedroom, your office space or your workspace is probably where you spend most of your time in your home. Firstly, you want to ensure that your workspace expresses your personality, your goals, your desires. Okay. And if you aren't sure what those even are, then getting clear is your first step, right? And as always, decluttering is always the first step. I talk about this so much. So, regardless if you have clarity on your next steps or not, just do some decluttering, right? Declutter your desktop, your drawers, storage units if you know you're in like a full room, shelves, file cabinets, right? Spend some intentional time going through everything, right? Maybe things just need to be better organized. Or maybe there's some things that you need to just let go of, right? Like if you own a business and you have old projects and folders and files, get rid of them or secure them in a better way. Scan them in and organize them into folders on your desktop. Going clutter free gives you a clear vision, right? If you have papers all over the place, the desk, the floor, the shelf behind you, you know, you might be telling yourself that you have a handle on it, that you know where everything is. I know it looks a mess, but I know where everything is, right? You are actually sending a message to your subconscious that you are inundated, you are overwhelmed, right? And you're probably losing a bit of control and focus. And this stressful energy, whether you realize it or not, it shows up as disorganization, sometimes stagnancy. You know, clients and creative projects stop flowing, or or they might struggle to take off or get to the finish line. Eventually, it impedes your business and it reflects on the outside, right? And it trickles out into your partnerships, your colleagues, your vendors, your clients. In play, you might feel like you start a lot of things, but you never quite finish them. You use your time at your workspace a little bit unintentionally, right? You either completely disassociate or you're easily distracted, right? You might spend too much time on social media or gaming apps or just sort of mindlessly doing nothing. And you waste that precious time where you had hoped would be utilized for being more productive or more creative, right? If this is where you pay your bills or you tend to prepare your budgets, whatever, how's that going? Are you stressed about money? Is there enough coming in? Is there too much debt? Not enough in savings, right? Your financial flow is also directly tied to your creative pursuits and obviously your career, how you make money. And if you're in a time crunch and a full on office decluttering is just too much of a project right now, and I get it, sometimes it is, a quick energetic reset is to just remove absolutely everything from your actual desk. Or again, if you're working at the dining room table or you're working in your living room, the coffee table, whatever surface is right in front of you where you're working, just completely clear it, wipe it down, and then very intentionally put back only the essentials, right? Throw away unnecessary papers and post-its, organize your pens into a jar, your notepads, your eyeglasses, right? Just the essentials. You don't really need much sitting on your desk. So, since we're talking specifically about the desk, my next thing you should do is ensure that you are set up or your desk is set up in the command position, sometimes called power position. I've talked about this position before. Power position is a feng shui adjustment for your bed, your desk, and your stove. So, for your desk, you ideally want your desk facing the door, but not in direct alignment with it. And you would like to have your back against a solid wall. And this is the preferred position so that you can see who's entering your office or who's approaching you. It allows you to see what's coming at you for the day and not catching you off guard. It puts you in control or command or in power while the solid wall behind you has your back and it supports you day in and day out. So, your desk positioning, now decluttered, is one of the key enhancements to both productivity and success. And some considerations if you don't have the option for a solid wall for your back, like behind me, I'm sort of tucked in a corner today. And that's really just because the natural lighting in my home is not the greatest and it's very cloudy and rainy today. So, I sort of had to move some things around um, to get the best lighting to record this for you today. But if you don't have that option for a solid wall, maybe you have a full large window. Do what you can to create some sort of barrier behind you, even if that's just maybe anchoring the space with a plant. This avoids having all of your creativity flow out the window, right? Feng Shui speaks in metaphors, so it takes some creative thinking sometimes to ensure that your home and your office are aligned for success. So, also, you want to avoid being in direct alignment with the door. This is so energy isn't rushing in at you, which creates, a little bit of discomfort, unease, a little undue stress. If the room itself doesn't allow for this, you can simply place a plant on your desk, or install like a feng shui crystal ball between the office threshold and the hallway outside. That will help slow down any of the energy that's entering the space. The desk position you want to avoid the most is having it facing or pushed up against a wall. This is the most common position that I come across, especially for clients who tell me that they feel stuck or blocked or things are just overall feeling stagnant. When your desk is up against the wall, you are literally against a wall or creating an obstacle. Again, feng shui speaking in metaphors. When you're not able to see the door, as I just mentioned, this disables you from being able to see who or what is coming at you, right? It causes you to feel uneasy, powerless, subconsciously stressed. If you're in an office space, like a commercial setting, you can place a small mirror on your desk so you can see who approaches your desk from behind, right? Or your cubicle. Think about, these commercial or corporate offices, those most influential in the company, like managers, directors, right? They have their desks facing the door. The employees, the worker bees, they're settled into tight containers, which over time impedes on creativity, right? You might notice a lack of passion for their work. Employees might get lazy or, they just don't have the excitement for their jobs that they once had. So if you're running an office or a company with this type of layout, you might want to consider the office space of your employees. So let's touch on some colors to incorporate into the office. Now, of course, you want to listen to your own intuitive guidance here, right? What are some of your favorite colors? How do certain colors make you feel in a space or when you wear them? Just really think about it for a moment. And if you're not sure, or if you do need some inspiration, I got you. Personally, my design advice for homes, offices, feng shui, any decorating advice really, is I always like to start with neutrals to help ground the space. So whether that's in area rugs or paint on the walls, just really neutralizing the space gives it sort of like this foundation to build upon. Like I said, I tend to keep the walls a neutral color, and then I like to add pops of color through artwork and decor. But you might want to paint your walls something a little more vibrant, right? Or deeply saturated. It really depends on the mood you're hoping to enhance for the space. Brighter colors will give more life to your projects. Reds and purples will motivate you and create more inspired action. When you think of red, you think of fire, you think of lighting a fire under you, right? Yellows or oranges help bring a sense of groundedness and connection. Yellows, especially, like are for, joyful, creative expression. So, just like the earth element, it's just grounded, it's healthy, it's joyous. Okay. Blues and soft greens, they just like in a spa environment, they kind of create this peaceful, calming environment. Darker greens, however, will inspire new ideas and opportunities. I like to use black when I need that little boost of confidence and power. In feng shui specifically, red and gold traditionally promote financial abundance and increase prosperity, while golds and other metallics help us refine and sort of reimagine, right? Just to ensure we stay on top or in alignment with our goals or our end results, right? So, see if any of those resonate. Again, just like decorating styles and aesthetics, color is up for interpretation. So, tap into what feels right for you. You don't need to paint your walls these colors, right? You don't have to paint your walls red or purple, but you can subtly incorporate color throughout your office, whether that's on your desk through or on the walls through artwork and photography and decorative objects. And that's what I'll segue into and end with is choosing decor for your office. Of course, infusing it with the color and all the things that you love, like we just spoke about, but also infusing it with past achievements and accomplishments. Of course, these could be certifications and diplomas. Those things are obvious, but even creative projects that you're proud of, right? That works really great in an office. For example, I painted 2 mini canvases during, like a family art night a few years ago, and I was really impressed by my talents. I was honestly shocked at how well my paintings came out from idea to creation. And so, I have those hanging in my office still. And, it sends like this look at what I can do, or wow, I did that subliminally again to your subconscious, reaffirming that you are capable and you are already creative, right? And if it's not artwork you created, it could be an article you've written or a testimonial written about you from one of your favorite client projects, or an email, sent from your boss from one department to another, just kind of giving you praise, right? Print them out, hang them up. You deserve to be recognized. My very first article that I ever wrote for Thrive Global, my good friend and coworker at the time, she printed it out and framed it for me. And I thought that was such an incredible gift. So I think that we tend to forget, and actually, not even tend, it's even proven scientifically that the brain tends to minimize and forget about past accomplishments. And it tends to overcompensate that with focusing on what's going wrong or what's not going right or where we're lacking, right? So, inspired artwork and inspired accomplishments really help sort of balance that out and prove to yourself that you did it before and you are very capable of doing it again. If you're lacking clarity or vision, work on a vision board, right? And display it in your office where you'll see it every day. You can place clear objects or crystal obelisks on your desk to help envision new ideas. I actually sell these on my website in addition to the Feng Shui crystal balls that I referenced before. Um, I'll put a link in the show notes if you're interested in looking at those. If things feel stagnant or slow in business, or you're feeling sluggish, or you're lacking motivation and drive, or you just need some new ideas, right? Bring in some plants or flowers to help enliven the space. Better yet, start each day in your office with some intention setting, right? Opening a window to let some fresh air in, if possible. This clears the space naturally and allows you to sort of reset the energy of your space each and every day. I live in a warm climate. I think about how often my windows are closed, but I immediately know when I need to just bring in some fresh air, right? It's just like when you need to take a walk and get some fresh air, right? The same thing applies to your home. Your home needs to breathe too. So let that come in, right? This is great when you have some mental blocks, lacking vision, lacking clarity. You hear people talk about writer's block, things like that. Open a window and just let the space breathe for a few minutes. So these office tips, they can be done at any time, right? You do not have to wait for summer. If you might, maybe you're catching this episode at some other time in the year. But refreshing your office space in the summer is what allows you to connect back to that season of passion and joy, the two emotional energies that have a direct impact on our career, our work, and purposeful play. That's all I have for you today. Please don't forget to follow and subscribe. Next week, we kick off our summer guest series, and I will be back in September with fresh new episodes for you and your home. Until then, my friends, I'm sending you so much love and gratitude.